curator of this exhibition, which is the 2022 New Jersey Arts Annual Reemergence. Yeah, thank you for joining us. It's our second event of our series of artist talks featuring artists from the exhibition. And this lunchtime series of talks is really meant to offer additional context and insight into works in this exhibition, as well as, for a really unique opportunity to talk with the artists and learn about them and their practices. The New Jersey, just a few thank yous to get out of the way. The New Jersey Arts Annual Reemergence is a project of the New Jersey State Council on the Arts and the New Jersey State Museum. Funding for the New Jersey Arts Annual Reemergence has been made possible in part by funds from the New Jersey State Council on the Arts and has received additional support from the New Jersey State Museum Foundation through the Lucille M. Harris Fund. So today we're really privileged to have two artists present to speak about their practice and their work. We have Jose Camacho and Matilda Forsberg. I'll offer some brief introductions about the artists, but they'll talk about their work a lot more in depth, of course. Matilda Forsberg is a Swedish painter based in Newark, New Jersey. In her work, she reflects on migration, heritage, and multicultural identity, often meditating on what it means for her and her family to settle in a foreign country and culture. Matilda's work has been exhibited across the country at galleries in New York, Los Angeles, and Portland, Oregon. In 2020, her work was presented in Mother Tongue as part of the Immigrant Artist Biennial. She is the awardee of the 2021 Liquitex residency and the recipient of the 2021 City of Newark and Newark Arts Creative Catalyst Fund grant and the 2020 Newark Art Accelerator grant by Project for Empty Space and the Andy Warhol Foundation for the Visual Arts. Forsberg was awarded Best in Show Award in 2020 at Wide Open 11 at BWAC Gallery in Brooklyn. She received her BFA in painting from Pacific Northwest College of Art in Portland, Oregon. Jose Camacho arrived in New Jersey from his native Puerto Rico at the age of 19, where he continued his artistic studies at Montclair State University. Today, his richly layered paint surfaces combine commercial methods of artistic production with subject matter that explores memory and cultural heritage. Jose is the recipient of various awards, including a residency fellowship for Rutgers Center for Innovative Print and Paper in 2006, and the New Jersey State Council on the Arts Fellowship. His work has been included in many exhibitions in museums as well as private galleries, including the Visual Arts Center of New Jersey, El Museo del Barrio in New York City, the Ben Shahn Gallery at William Patterson University, James Oliver Gallery in Philadelphia, to name a few. Currently, Jose works with Midland Gallery in Montclair, New Jersey, as well as a private dealer in New York. So please join me in welcoming these two wonderful artists to our galleries. So we'll get started. Let's walk over. This is a walk and talk kind of artist talk. So we're going to walk over to Matilda's work, which is on the other side here by the window. And I'll hand things over to Matilda there.
Thank you so much for coming. So my name is Matilda Forsberg, and I am a painter based in Newark, New Jersey. I was born and raised in Sweden, and I came here for college. I lived in a few different places before landing in New Jersey. I first came to Portland, Oregon, then I moved to Miami, and then I moved to New York City, and when I was pregnant with my daughter, I ended up moving to New Jersey. So my work meditates on my experiences as an immigrant, but also on my daughter's mixed Chinese and Swedish heritage. I think a lot about how the past and the present are connected. I get a lot of inspiration from old family histories. So for the past few years, so this piece is part of a body of work that I started exploring when my daughter was born. I wanted to learn more about her Chinese side of the family. Most of her relatives on that side, live really far away and they're not part of our daily lives, or they had already passed on. So I started really, exploring especially they came from Hong Kong to Miami in the 70s. So I was really looking at those photographs. And as I was painting these narratives, I started to sort of see myself in a lot of stories, because I think even though the circumstances surrounding our immigration experience were very different, a lot of sort of the emotions and experience you face or encounter as an immigrant are very similar. No matter what your background are, like nostalgia and missing your old country and certain customs or traditions, like even certain foods. I mean, food is very important actually. But then also, the excitement of being in a new country and having opportunities you might not have otherwise. And then there's the whole thing of having a foot in multiple cultures, so that kind of brings up a whole identity thing. You're not quite sure where you belong, like you don't feel fully Swedish anymore, you're not totally American either. I think I was trying to really focus on conveying those types of emotions, sort of conflicting or colliding emotions. And for this painting, this is actually referencing a photo from Hong Kong. Usually in my paintings, my process is very intuitive. I kind of usually start with an old family photograph, but I usually just use a component from it, and then I subtract things or I add in things from other photographs, especially from my current life, from my Swedish heritage, and kind of mix it all up, or add things from memory. In this painting, it's a little bit more straightforward approach, I think. But I wanted to keep it simple because I wanted to really focus on the people in the scene. They're distant relatives of my daughter. So I wanted to really connect with them and kind of celebrate them. This gathering is taking place in the apartment where her great-grandparents raised their family. So I know that in here I'm not quite sure which is which. I don't know who the other people were, but I kind of took away the whole structure of the apartment, even though I have actually been to that one apartment. It's a tiny little apartment in Hong Kong that one family member still lives there. But I think overall, this painting was influenced by just my experiences from visiting Hong Kong, and also I used to watch a lot of Wong Kar-wai movies. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him.
With what movies?
Wong Kar-wai. His movies are so beautiful. He's a Hong Kong film director, and so I think the way he lights his movies are very poetic and beautiful and unique. So when I visit Hong Kong, I always kind of look for those Wong Kar-wai moments. And I think that's kind of influencing the color scheme, but also the sort of, because it's kind of it's green and kind of lush, but it's a little off.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about the color. Because the color is so specific and it's almost parts of it are even like day clothes, kind of. Like it's not necessarily something you would have in your own, you would paint in your own apartment. So I was wondering if it was real, if it was coming from your imagination, where that was coming from.
Yes, I think a lot of it from visiting Hong Kong, going to a lot of like food markets, like at nighttime there, a lot of like strangely lit places. And I think that was just kind of coming through. Like I always found like the lighting, the way everything was lit there was very, I guess a lot of neon signs.
So that's kind of one area where like your impression of a place, your memory of it is kind of coming through in this, maybe like more historical sort of like family photograph, but a source material that exists.
Yeah. And I was sort of thinking of it as like a distant past or memory that I was trying to grasp by making it really large like this. But then again, sort of colored by my own experiences in the area too. So, yeah, I don't know what else really to say about this painting, but I think like usually in my work, you'll also see like fragments of objects or scenes or like a chair or a pattern, like a checker pattern or a piano or something, and they kind of ground the painting in a more physical reality for me, because they're all kind of like dreamscape, dreaming, but then they're placed in a way that's not necessarily logical, or the scale might be off, so they kind of become like these mind collages.
And also, you're invited to participate as well if you'd like to like jump in and have a question or anything. But yeah, I was sort of wondering. I had a couple of questions about this particular painting. I guess one was about the color and also the image within the image in the back. Sort of, was that something that was in the photograph, or?
So the structure, it's loosely kind of still remaining, like of the architecture of the apartment. But I think I was just kind of thinking they're gambling. So I started painting in these like kind of almost devil-looking people. There's like a palm tree, and there's like other things going on here. It was a very last-minute decision, but I sort of felt like it kind of pulled the whole painting together.
Yeah, it does. It sort of is this kind of mirror image in an image through it. So that's not coming from the photograph that you were working from. Yeah.
I was sort of thinking a little bit like I moved to Miami, so I like added like the palm trees and like I just wanted to make it feel kind of transient.
I just wanted to say really quickly, when I looked at the picture, right away, my first instinct was that these were people of color, not Swedish people. I don't know, and then of course the gentleman over in the back that took it from me, I said, yes. And then when you said, of course, your background, Swedish and Asian, Chinese, then it all fit together. And it's very warm to me, inviting to me. I love the color because it's impactful. It kind of draws you in right away. And I love this woman. Is she smoking a cigarette? Yeah, she's like sort of like saying, hey, don't bother us, we're busy. That's what I get from her.
No, I love that they're looking, presumably at a camera.
Yeah.
And so in the image that we get from you, they're looking back out at the viewer.
Right.
So there's sort of this direct engagement, which I don't know, that attracts me a lot to this image. I don't know if that was something, how do you choose the photographs? And, I don't know if that's something that attracted you to it, or...
Yeah, I think that was part of it. It felt like a very engaging scene. I take like tons of photos from old family albums, and I just have them all on my phone, and I just scroll through, and sometimes some components just kind of grabs my attention, and I'm not always really sure why. But as I start painting, I'm kind of like, oh yeah, that's why I choose that picture, because it was, trying to tell me something. But I sort of have to go through the process of painting to get to that understanding.
Just to add something about what you were saying, looking back at you, it makes me think of Las Meninas by Velázquez, how the people in the painting are like sort of engaging you by looking at you as well. It's like, it's had the same sort of feeling of like, I just arrived to this.
Right.
But it's a good thing. I feel like they kind of welcome you. Come and hang out, chill. And I'm intrigued by that little sort of bacchanalia that you got going on in the back there, that sort of Greek dancing and devils. It's an interesting.
But it was important to me to connect with them and really focus on their facial expressions and their body language. So this painting is way less, collagey and more straightforward than my current work or more recent work.
Yeah, I was wondering about your more recent work, and I'm sorry if this is a question that you just asked, Jose, if you're still sort of working in this mode of going to these source images, and are they still, these older images from, I guess, the 70s when they're still in Hong Kong, or if, how has your work maybe changed or evolved? How are you seeing your practice?
Yeah, so I still use these photos as kind of a base, but I think in a much less representational way. I might pick just one component, like one figure or a couple of figures, or the overall composition, and then as I go, I combine it with components from other photographs. And lately I've been adding in a lot, from my Swedish background too, so it's kind of like the two, families or backgrounds are meeting in a different type of space than what would be possible in reality or real life.
Oh wow! Have you ever? I was wondering I imagine your Swedish component comes in through you, since you are the artist. That's your perspective, your view into it in the first place. So it's always there.
Right.
But I was wondering if there was a more explicit way that you're doing that, or if you ever use photographs from your family as well.
I do, yeah.
Okay.
I do. Yeah, and sometimes it's just from memory, and sometimes it's from old photographs. I have tons of photographs from old Sweden.
Yeah, wow.
That I sometimes mix in. I did one painting that has my grandmother in the foreground, and then she's surrounded by the paternal, or my daughter's paternal great grandparents and other figures. Wow. And I kind of think of it as a roadmap that leads up to my daughter.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah. I guess more about the process. I see painting as a very kind of almost like a spiritual act, that allows you to access parts of yourself or unknown parts of yourself, and maybe even tap into something universal if you can get to that space. So some of my paintings, I guess to get to that space, I kind of go through layers and layers of paint and thoughts and feelings. So some are much more textured, some come very easy. It's kind of, this one I felt like it was almost a continuation of a previous painting, so it kind of became much more easy.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, do you ever have sort of a group of paintings that go together in your mind? It sounds
Yeah.
like maybe you do.
Yeah, I do definitely.
Like
Yeah.
series. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, if there's any other questions, I think we have another minute or so before we go across the gallery.
I got a quick one.
Yeah.
How did the pandemic influence your work?
Oh yeah. I think because at first I set up a home studio, and my daughter at the time, she was 3, and she really likes to paint too. So although I was kind of forced to go smaller than normally, but what I really enjoyed was she really started to engage with my painting and participate with the paintings, and just go in and like could paint on it and drawing her own things and painting her own things, and it was some paintings came out much better that way. Yeah.
So you have paintings that are kind of collaborations
Yeah.
with your daughter?
Yeah.
Oh, that's really wonderful.
Yeah, so that was really fun. But yeah, except for that, I mean, I just kind of moved to a smaller studio for a while. And then, I mean, of course, it was harder as far as like, getting your work seen and, that whole part. But as far as making the work, I think it was just the opportunity of working with my daughter more that was really rewarding.
Was this done before the pandemic or after?
Would have been
Well,
done.
it's sort of just into after, I'm just.
Or
Yeah.
during.
Or during,
Yeah.
but not like the early parts.
Yeah, it says it has the date of 2021.
Oh, okay, thank you,
Yeah.
sorry about that.
Yeah, no,
I think end of last year.
Yeah. Yeah, my question is about the title. So
The title?
The Daredevils.
The Daredevils.
The painting is called. So I
Yes.
was curious, maybe that's a good question to end on.
Sure. Yeah, so I was, it's kind of like a gambling thing to me, and I was like, ending with the painting in this like devil like characters, and I was thinking about like how, most of these people, they actually end up staying in Hong Kong, but I was thinking how like, when you emigrate to a new country, it's really like a gamble, like you have no idea what to expect, like especially for them, like they had a much more challenge getting there, so it's really like taking a big gamble, so that's kind of where the title came
Yeah.
from.
It's a good title.
It is. It's very compelling. Thank you, Matilda.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I want to thank everyone for coming and Sarah inviting me over and doing this little talk. Anyway, I'm from the island of Boriquén, which is known as Puerto Rico today, and I've been living in the state of New Jersey for over 35 years. I make Montclair my studio base, working area, whatever. And I am a painter. Just to give you a little background information on this painting in particular, I not only work on text, I also do more representational work, and I also do abstractions. And I want to say maybe 20 years ago, I started adding text to my paintings. At the beginning, there were more just one word, straightforward, and then the text sort of took over the entire surface, and this is one of those samples. This painting, that is interesting because I always have a problem referring to this type of work, so it's graphite on paper mounted on canvas. I like to think of them as paintings because of the physicality of they are, but they could be drawings as well. Anyway, I want to say maybe 10 years ago, I started making paintings of plantains. It was just a simple motif of a bunch of plantain hanging from a rope.
I appropriated that image from a Puerto Rican artist named Francisco Oyer. Francisco Oyer, Puerto Rican artist that goes back to the 1800s. He used to travel to France, Spain, and back and forth to Puerto Rico. While he was in Paris, he was friends with Cézanne, Pissarro, a lot of the Impressionists. And he'll come back to Puerto Rico and make these beautiful landscapes of Puerto Rico using some of that Barbizon style of painting, early Impressionism. But while he was in Puerto Rico, he was also doing still lifes. So I took one of those still lifes from him and I started making paintings of that painting, basically. And like I said, it's just a bunch of plantain tied up by a rope, hanging on the pictorial plane. So then this idea occurred to me. I asked my mother one day to give me the recipe of her, what we call Puerto Rican pasteles. Pasteles is a staple food in the island. It is made with, not plantain, but with green bananas, and also other types of roots and stuff like that. So I asked my mother to give me her recipe. Not her recipe as in amounts of things, but rather, I want you to write the process of making your pastéis in your own words. So it took me like 2 years to get that from her. One day, I think maybe a year before, maybe in 2019, I got a letter from her and there was a recipe, or the description of the process, I should say. So I started working on the canvas. I went through a series of steps to get to this. I first had to decide the size, which size am I going to do it. I looked at the text. I want to make sure I have enough room to cover the whole surface. I made some calculations. And again, deciding on the size and the format, whether it's a vertical or horizontal. And I decided to go horizontal. I did the whole text with stencil. I usually use stencil. I started making my own stencils in the beginning, and then I said, I can buy stencils. So I started buying stencils, and I do like the stencil because it's very mechanical, straightforward. It's like a ready-made thing. Makes me think of myself the charm. So I did the whole text, and then the pandemic happened. And I found myself with plenty of time to work in my work, because I was shut down for business and everything. So this work was done during the quarantine. I worked on it. What else can I say about this painting? So anyway, as I'm working on this painting, I don't always have my work figured out as I'm making it. There's a lot of stuff that happened in the process. As I'm working on this painting, and I'm fusing my mother's ideas of process of making something with my process, I sort of came across this concept of universal theme of mother and son, It's a universal theme in alchemy and esoteric thinking. And I thought, well, there you go. This is my version of Madonna with child, in a way. My mother's process fused within my process. What else can I tell you? What other mysteries can I tell you about this thing?
I think one mystery I have a question about is I guess let's talk about the physical painting first.
Yeah.
You mentioned that it's graphite on paper mounted on canvas.
Yes.
So I'm wondering, and you can kind of see, I'm guessing that it's 9 sheets of paper?
9 sheets of paper.
Yeah, how did you plan this out? the text is going straight across all of them. Are you working on the paper separately before mounting it? Is it mounted already?
The paper was mounted first.
Okay.
Then I stencil the text. Then I take it apart from the stretchers. And I either work on a table or on the floor, or I staple the canvas on the wall because I need the hard surface behind it. But yeah, the 9 pieces of paper that you saw, that's an interesting observation.
Yeah.
Because I tend to read a lot about esoteric thinking and alchemy and all that and numerology. And this particular work, when I was designing it, I did it based on the science of number 9.
I love the number 9.
Yeah.
Beautiful number.
Yes. It's also known as number 9 is also referred to the woman's womb.
Does it?
Yeah. 9 months, you know, so there's a science behind that.
Sure.
So when I was designing this piece, I said I'm going to work on this based on the number 9. It's 54 by 72. 5 and 4, 9, 7, 2, 9, 1, that's 18, 18, 1 and 8 is 9. I brought from Puerto Rico, when I first moved here, I love paper. 35 years ago, whenever that happened, I brought paper with me from Puerto Rico. And I had these sheets of paper that were from that bunch of paper that I brought from Puerto Rico. And I said, I'm going to use this paper, which is an acid-free, all-purpose drawing paper, and I'm going to mount it. And guess what? I had only 9 sheets. And when I laid them down on the surface, I was surprised that 20, I think they're like 20 by 24, I don't know, 20 something by 24. I didn't have to cut the paper.
At those dimensions.
It fits perfect on the surface. And I was like, look at that, I'll be there.
Yeah.
Again, those things, you know, happen in the process. So now, as I'm deciding which way to go, whether horizontal or vertical, in painting, you usually, when you work with abstraction especially, the idea of horizontal gives you the feeling of a landscape, and vertical is usually the human figure. So as I'm contemplating the empty canvas in the studio, I said to myself, should I go horizontal or vertical? And then I said, Mother should be a landscape. So it's a horizontal. And then that was my title as well. I said, oh, that's a good title for this piece too. Mother should be a landscape. So that's where the title comes from.
I was going to ask you about your title, the landscape format.
It's more the landscape format, but again, you know, Mother Earth,
Yeah.
you think of all these nurturing qualities of the mother, of the feminine principle, and things like that.
There's also that interesting, when you point out the paper that you brought, the letter that you received, it's also there's a reference to a place too, the place that you're from.
Yes.
The island that you're from, which, I think that also, for me, it reads into this landscape theme as well.
A lot of what I do, my work, it's in relation to our history. And I do, because I'm Puerto Rican, I can only probably tell a story from my point of view. And that's my heritage, that's my culture. So I often find myself finding metaphors within Puerto Rican history and who I am in the context of the United States. We are part of the United States, but we are also a colony. We are where we should be, and we are not when we're not wanted. So you have that dichotomy going with the island of Puerto Rico. So I find a lot of metaphors and themes that I transfer into my work. I tend to leave that kind of obscure. I don't usually want my work to be seen as political. I like the idea of I once said to a friend of mine, I said, you know, in my case, painting comes first. Art is an afterthought. I'm more concerned with the process of making these things. Obviously, who I am, what I read, what I eat, what I do, is going to show because that's what art is. It's about who you are in a way, and what the viewer brings into the painting as well. It's a revolving door. So I tend to keep my surfaces very obscure. My work is, I'm trying very hard right now to put color into my work. Trying. But I always go back to this often. But I've been successful in a couple of projects. It's probably my temperament, you know. I'm a happy man. I'm not angry at all, you know. But my work tends to be dark like this.
No, but it's so the surface is so rich, and I guess I'm wondering, is the graphite on the entire surface of the paper, or?
Yeah, it's all graphite.
Yeah.
I mean, if you touch it, you might get a little bit in your hand because
Don't touch it. Don't touch it.
I don't seal it.
Uh-huh.
I did that once for someone who purchased one of these paintings, and she wanted to put it in the lobby of her company. And I said, I better seal this because anything can happen. But I usually don't. For me, I don't seal them. If somebody wants me to seal them, but then he loses this sort of weird, bouncy, the way he reads the light. If he loses that, because it gives me this sort of more plastic, you know, finish.
No, what I find fascinating about your work and this work in particular is how, you know, everything's on the surface, or you can read this recipe, you can see the title, the 9 sheets that you were referring, like everything is there, but there's also, it's so layered, it's almost hidden in a way that I find really compelling. Like it draws me in to try to figure it out. There's a puzzle there, and it sounds like, you know, is that something you're after, sort of that like experiment you were talking about?
Well, working with text is not easy.
Yeah.
Because, how do I say this? It could easily become a cliche, you know, and I don't want that. The words that I select sometimes mostly are from Puerto Rican jargon, music, poetry, and in this case, my mother's recipe of pasteles. But I try not to be a one line punch, you know, anything like that. I want it to remain mysterious in a way, so the viewer can bring something to it.
Yeah.
Some people ask me sometimes at all the shows, what am I missing, Jose? I don't speak Spanish. Well, you're not missing anything. It's there for you to see, you know? The language, I want to treat it like an abstraction to it.
Yeah.
I'm not interested so much in people being able to read it, because even if you can read this, now you have to start separating the words. You may pick 1 or 2 here and there if you speak Spanish, but you know, for you to, and some of the text gets lost sometimes because of the graphite. I'm no longer as careful as I used to be in terms of, you know, having that mind and getting better at it too. Actually, each piece is getting better and better.
So are you still working with the same recipe as your source for the text? You're working with other texts?
No, I work with other texts.
Okay.
Right now, I have 2 projects going on. I done prayers, the Hail Mary also. I want to do one in blue, like that sort of.
The color that's associated with Mary, usually
Exactly.
in a lot of Renaissance.
In those Renaissance paintings, exactly that. Finding that right. Now I have to figure out how to do that because that's not, unless I use color pencil, which I don't want to.
Yeah.
I want to use something else, maybe actual paint.
Interesting.
And I'm also working with with the plantain paintings, which I still work with, they get abstract and they get more figurative. I actually brought a catalog if you care to look at it after the talk. They become more abstract, but I want to do a series of 12 plus 1 painting. And it's going to be based on The Last Supper by Da Vinci. So I'm working with that. Yeah, so in this painting, I mean, there's a lot of hidden stuff, like my mother's birthdays and the year she was born. She's Aquarius constellation. My day of birth is here somewhere.
And I noticed you have at the bottom, that's the title of the painting, but it's upside down, right, with the year?
Yeah, I tend to do that. Sometimes
Okay.
Sometimes I will start the painting in one direction and then it starts from here too. So when it meets in the center, it sort of becomes something else. In some of my abstract paintings, the text is on the side. White text, that's something that, you know, it's an interesting thing for a painter because we don't think in words. We think of in images.
No, it's very conceptual. Right, there's sort of a conceptual aspect to that to bring in the idea of language and to, you know, when you read and even like the image of a word, it brings an image into your mind.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting, I don't know, it's a really interesting aspect to your work and, you know, a whole lineage of artists who also use language in their painting and their work.
And then you have things like this, you know, that I do. That's me throwing a monkey wrench into my crosses.
Wow.
There's a little blue here, you know, maybe the blue I will use in that Hail Mary painting. Yeah, but these things I have all the pieces that these stains are even, I make them stronger, like with metallic paint, and they look like drips. It's like me combining the drawing quality of this with the happy accidents of painting.
Sure.
You know, but I'm incorporating it.
Yeah.
Some people even ask me, what is that? It's a kind of paint you like sitting on top of your painting? I say, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because when I work on these pieces, the funny thing about this is that I'm working on a table or in the floor. I don't see this like this. It's not like I can go back and look at the composition. There is a composition, but I don't see it until I stretch it again. And sometimes I'm like, oh my God, I don't like this.
Yeah.
It's not what I was hoping to see. But again, I keep at it and I make it myself. I bring it all up again to my liking.
Wonderful. Well, it's about 1 o'clock. Are there any questions?
Any questions?
I must say, as a layperson, because I'm not an artist per se, I love art. Yeah, but when I first walked over here, I was like, hope that black one's not his. That was what I first said. But then, as you explained it and talked about it to me, and I understood that it was a connection between you and your mother, and it's a recipe, it became something different to me. It became more spiritual. You know, I totally kind of got that. Does that say that all in that little description that's over there? Like if I just came in and you weren't here, I would get that idea from that description, right?
Probably.
But you get even more because Jose is here.
No, that's what
And
I'm
you can
saying.
yes, you'll understand
that helped me. But if I just walked in as off the street and just read that, I think that your explanation just made this experience for me with your painting so much richer. I appreciate that you explained all of that and then the cultural connection. And I really thought about it when you said about your mother. It took you 2 years. I used to try to get a recipe from my mother-in-law for pound cake, and I never got the recipe. So, you know, you got the recipe, obviously. Because older people in different cultures, they don't write things down. They don't say, a half a teaspoon of this and you do this. They just say, you put a little of this in, a pinch of this. And so to get a recipe, and she took the time, so she loved you dearly.
Oh, I'm her firstborn, so I'm sure she,
So I appreciate all the cultural connection.
but yes, it took me some time to get it from her. Because at the beginning she was like, what are you going to do with that? I want to make it work hard. And, but then I told him, Mom, it's not, I don't want you to give me amounts of anything. I want you to just tell the story of how you do it. That's all. And before I used the stencil, I was also, maybe I'll do another one, but this time I'm going to project her handwriting and use her handwriting. I mean, it's going to look scribbly, because she has this very fancy. But that's another idea. But I went with the stencil because that was my original idea. But I might do another one doing that. She saw this piece. She lives in Puerto Rico, and she came to visit and I showed it to her, and she was quite happy. And my mother is funny though. Typical Puerto Rican.
So I have a question not related quite to the art. Well, it is. But have you ever actually made the recipe yourself?
Make the pasteles? No, that's a lot of work. That's a lot of work.
More work than this painting.
There's a lot of grinding that you need to do. There's a lot of, because you're taking a whole bunch of different vegetables and grinding them together. You know, it's like making tomatoes too, you know, how they break it all down. Then you have to wrap them in plantain leaves, and then you boil them. They're delicious. If you ever go to a Puerto Rican restaurant and you see them, just have one, okay? And the ketchup is on you. I don't like ketchup in my pastel. But it's funny because if you can read this, there's I think Tortivar, which is, she even tells you how to eat it. She said, and you can combine it with a little salad and white rice. I mean, I'm not making fun of it. Just that, you know, I think it's a cute little thing.
No, it's very personal, and I think it's, you know, it's really interesting, this work, and Matilda's work, just how much, you know, narrative and personality you're able to get in these very different ways. Where even in this sort of abstract, sort of slightly more conceptual version, you know, her personality is still there. There's kind of a portrait aspect to it. So yeah, thank you so much, Jose.
You're
and
welcome.
Thank you so much,
Thank you
Matilda. Thank you for being here. Thank you, everyone for coming. And yeah, our next artist talk is November 16th, and I hope you join us.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you.